it's like my first class. I came in and the discussion is going to be about, abortion, homosexuality, war, so all issues, because it's all about Christian ethics. So I thought I'd just cover like a small part of it. There's nothing controversial here. It's just it's a way of thinking that I'm going to cover. So it's not going to be exciting like last week or 2 weeks ago. It's hopefully it's useful. Because when I learned this, I thought this was pretty useful for me. And it's not as boring as it sounds. Nature of Christian moral norms. So it sounds boring, but we're going to get into it. It's like Christians and non-Christians, they organize and communicate their moral convictions, like what your beliefs are, at 4 different levels. It's not just one, you don't communicate it one way, you have 4 levels of doing that. And I'm going to explain each of these levels, the particular way, the judgment way, rules, principles, and ground of meaning. So I'm just going to go through that and also show where in Scripture that these are done. And the hope of why I'm doing this is that I'm presenting this as some kind of a model to organize how we think about our moral convictions. And I think that would resolve a basic problem in communication. Especially, when you talk about moral norms, a lot of people, they often miscommunicate and confuse each other because they're talking about different levels. One may talk about love one another, those are principles. Another person may talk about thou shalt not kill, which are rules. An example would be, when people talk about abortion, someone might communicate in a rules level like thou shalt not kill any human life at all costs. While someone else may say, well, I want justice for the woman. So it's sort of a different level, and a lot of times people kind of communicate that way instead of understand one another. So my hope is, as I do this, when we talk about more taboo topics in the future, we will communicate at a kind of like a more, we will be more in sync. At least we would know where we're coming from, regardless. So I'm not going to get into abortion. I'm just going to get into the model of what this is. How we think about ethics. Is that clear? Okay, all right. So nothing controversial here. So there's 4 levels. The first level is called particular or immediate judgment level, and it's a judgment that applies only to one specific case, and no reasons may be given. Although if you ask the person, there could be reasons, or there could be no reasons. For example, when someone says, "Well, that's wrong," it's a flat out, it's wrong. It's a quick judgment. You don't know if the person has a reason or has good reasons, or they may not. Or you say, "Oh, what a good thing to do." So, okay, you didn't exactly say why, but there could be a lot of reasons under that. But at the surface, that's the judgment. It's a particular judgment level. Or Linda is a good person. So these are just judgment calls. In the Bible, you have Jesus calling Herod that fox. It's actually in their time, it's a criticism. But Jesus did not give reasons why. It could be because he knew that Herod had, he was against John the Baptist, he made his life difficult. It could be so many different reasons, but it's just that fox. So that's a particular immediate judgment level. And a lot of times, a lot of people just stick there. They just make a judgment, they don't give their reasons, it's just their feeling, and they do that. Like you might know specific examples. I don't know.
See it on Facebook.
Oh, you see it on Facebook, yes.
All the time, people making these comments about stuff that they don't.
Every day.
Yeah. So, although if you engage the person, there could be more underneath, but it's either they know it or it's not yet explored. So.
Scary to get engaged on Facebook.
Okay.
They
Yes.
come back to you and you go back to them.
Right, and it becomes
Yeah.
messy. So at one level, that's one level of moral norm. The second one is the rules level. And I have an example, Matthew 5:41. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2 miles. That's one of Jesus' commandments. And what it is about is that Roman soldiers cannot actually compel Jews to carry their equipment for 1 mile. They can actually do that. They're the conquerors. They're the ones who are occupying the Jewish territory. But Jesus, what he said was, instead of just 1, why don't you do 2? So it's interesting, right? It's like help them not just for a mile, but go even further than a mile.
Is that like kill them with kindness kind of thing? Or
We'll get to that.
Okay.
Another example, it says, "Thou shalt not kill," but also in what Jesus said in Matthew, but if you are unreconciled with someone, if you interrupt your worship of God, you need to interrupt your worship to go make peace with that person and settle with your accuser while on your way to court, etc. So Jesus adds more things in there. So these are kind of like at a rules level. Jesus specifically telling what to do in that situation. So on the rules level, the rule applies not just to one immediate case, but to all similar cases. It's not just for a specific person. The rule can tell us directly what to do or what not to do. So much more specific. It's not just a judgment. So you carry a pack a 2nd mile. It's different than saying love your enemy, which is a totally different level. So that's sort of where it comes from. It's the principle behind it is loving your enemy. Because
Is that
there's
because it's broad, love your enemy?
yeah,
This
that's
is more specific. Is
right.
that what you're saying? Oh.
right for the rules level. The next level is principles. That's what love your enemy is. And there's other ways to love your enemy, like praying for them and giving them something to drink. So that's a totally different level. But on this level, it's specific rules which applies to many similar situations. So is that clear? Yeah. Okay. So I'll give more examples. Someone could say, why is it wrong for a certain person to speak harshly to a child? Someone who would answer from a rules level would say, oh, look at these scriptures. It says, with the tongue we curse people who are made in God's image. It ought not be so. We shouldn't do that. Or they can say, be kind to one another. That's in the Bible, that's a specific thing. Or fathers should not provoke their children to anger in Ephesians. So at a rules level, someone would say that. But now we're going to the 3rd level, on a principles level. It's broader. If you can look at it, it's love your enemies. And there's many different ways to do that. Or do unto others as you would have others do unto you. There's also many ways to do that. Or love your neighbor as yourself. Again, there's many different things for that. And love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. Again, there's many. That's why it captures the law and the prophets. That's why Jesus said that, because it covers all the rules that are
So are
in
the
Bible.
rules under the principles?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or I'm presenting it in a slightly different way. I have a schematic. So, but on the principle level, so we have. Well, I'm going to show. There's the judgment level. There's rules behind it, and then there's principles even further from it.
Okay.
So the principles are more general than rules. They're one level deeper. And the principles are the basis for the rules, or show why the rules need to be changed. So rules can actually change depending on the principle. So that's where it gets just a little interesting. And as I mentioned earlier, love your enemy supports go a 2nd mile. The principle supports the rule, and the rule spells out the application of the principle. Is that clear? So here's sort of my schematic diagram. So I'm gonna go to the fourth thing in a little while, but you can see the judgments, they're just on the surface. They're what you hear from people, but you don't know what's behind it or what's below it. What's below it, there's actually rules from people. And under the rules, there's specific principles that they work with. And people may know it, or people may not, and they're unaware of it, but they're there. And then even below that is what is called ground of meaning beliefs, which I will explain. But before I explain that, we should say, are there such things as absolute rules, or are there exceptions? On one hand, we're not for moral relativism, meaning we're not for no rules and any rule can change and all that, because we need concrete rules, right? And Jesus taught concrete and moral rules, so that's the case. So some people say there are rules that are absolute. So I'm just going to give an example here. So you teach your small child not to touch a pot on the stove. When you do that, especially a little kid, you don't need to name exceptions. Like a few weeks ago I said, for Journey, we're not going to let her eat dog food or touch the dish at any cost. There's no exception. And the principle of the rule is you love the child. You want to protect the child from harm. And boiling pots burn those who touch them. So those are kind of like what's behind the rule. Actually, one day we did find Journey spit out of her mouth a piece of dog food. So it already happened. So that's why we're even stricter with that. Because we had that. I didn't say that in the sermon, but that actually what happened. So we're glad she spit it out. But in this case, it's about
She was
not...
like, this doesn't taste good.
Right. Just never touch pots in the oven. But the thing is, the argument is, the rules are there because there's principles. The rule isn't just there because of nothing. So actually, the principles can change what the rules are. For example, the rule, don't touch pots on the stove. It does not apply if the pot is not hot or it's not on. It does not apply if the child is old enough and knows how to cook. So you're not going to tell your child who is 23, do not ever touch the pots on the stove. Because the principle is still the same. You love the child, you don't want the child to be harmed, but the child won't be harmed because of that. So I'll give an even more interesting example. Truth-telling. There's a principle behind, the rule is you shall not lie, right? You shall not bear false witness or lie. But the principle is when we tell someone something, we're implying a covenant with them. We respect them and tell them the truth because they are a person made in God's image. We owe them the truth, etc., etc. So, for example, when you're in the doctor's office, you communicate with the doctor. You tell the doctor exactly what's going on. You have a covenant with the doctor that you tell him all your symptoms, and the doctor will tell you the truth. So if you're dying, the doctor, will tell you, you're dying instead of lying to you. That's sort of a fixed covenant there. So that's for that example as to why truth-telling is there, and there's a principle behind telling the truth. In a different situation, though, like for this example, when the Nazis asked Dietrich Bonhoeffer, you all know Dietrich Bonhoeffer, if he was involved in rescuing Jews because they want to kill all the Jews if they found them. The rule says, tell the truth. But the rule is based on a covenant between the people, and especially the Nazis or the government, there's a covenant there. The government takes care of the people, etc. But the Gestapo isn't going to do that. They're going to do something different. And also there's a principle called, life is sacred. So what Bonhoeffer does is lie and say there's no Jews. I'm not evolved. And, he may be violating the rule, but he's following the principle, in a way, right? So in a way, the rule changed. Any question on that?
That's interesting. Sometimes we transgress the law to keep another one.
Right,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Minor nature.
right. Although in this one, the argument of the model says you're still keeping the principle intact. You're just,
But they are Jews. You lie. You lie in a sense. You lie, but you saving lives.
right, right. So the rules sort of change in that, but that's the principle, sacredness of life, and the Gestapo is no longer in an appropriate covenant with the people. So that's how these things can happen. In the Bible, you have Rahab. Rahab saved 2 spies sent by Joshua by lying to the king of Jericho that the spies have already fled. The spies were actually in her attic. And she did this because she heard how the Lord had delivered them from Egypt. She knew that the Lord is God in heaven and earth, and she feared for the lives of her kinspeople. So the spies made a covenant with her to save her family. So in this case, she violated the law of the rule of lying, but she has a covenant with God and God's people to protect one another. So that changes that rule of do not lie. Yeah. So is that interesting? Or?
Do you think some sins are bigger than others? Yellow sin, Catholic Church.
Who
Yellow
thinks?
sin and big.
Oh, yeah, like some churches would think, there's mortal sin, there's venial sin, and all that stuff.
What do you think?
So, for me at the moment, sin is sin, regardless. When presented, Jesus died for all the sins. A sin is still sin in the eyes of God. It's not holy.
Hebrew has different words.
Right.
Iniquity.
Right.
Yeah.
Transgression.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You know,
So in this case, it's like, she lied, but there's that principle behind it. So is that sort of an interesting take on it? So rules and principles. I'm just saying you need to understand that rules are based on principles, but we still need to affirm the strong need for rules. We need rules, but we don't have to be legalists.